the Song Cinema movie chat. I hope we're able to have a have a relatively smooth stream. I'm actually streaming from my phone tonight, even though I'm from home. Even though I'm at home, we were having some connectivity issues on the via the computer, and but I think we can make it work from the phone. It's probably gonna be fine, and I apologize for the lateness in this one this week. I'm going to explain why. It's kind of part of the reason that I'm doing tonight's chat, and thank you very much for reading my work at www.sonic-cinema.com, listening to the Sonic Cinema podcast, or watching some of the quick take reviews that I do at the Sonic Cinema podcast YouTube channel, as well as wherever you listen to the podcast, whether it's Google, Apple, or Spotify. And I've got some good things coming up. First, I'm actually going to be recording a new episode of the podcast this coming Thursday with a friend of mine from Twitter that I've gotten to know, and I was actually guested on his podcast, the Nostalgia Cast, back in March, actually, the night that I started this live stream, and we discussed Hal Needham's Rad, and that was a lot of fun to discuss. I'm looking forward to. If you haven't listened to that episode, I really recommend it. It's an entertaining listen. And I've got more. He and I are going to discuss the career and work of Orson Welles, which is going to be a lot of fun, a lot of interesting discussion to be had there, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. This summer, I hope to have some really entertaining episodes for you, some really good guests, some really interesting discussions on newer movies, on older movies, and I hope you join me on the Sonic Cinema podcast with that. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to kind of the heart of the matter. And so, first of all, I do apologize that the stream has been a bit erratic the past 2 weeks in terms of actually doing the stream. Part of that is because I actually just got back to work for the first time in 7 months. So that's been it's been taking some of my time away from the stream. But the big part of the reason that the stream has been so erratic the past few weeks is because of actually, and you know, it's actually because of things that's been going on with my mother. And if you know me, I've written about it on Sonic Cinema in the past, that my mother is actually the reason I'm doing what I do with Sonic Cinema. She's the reason I am in love with movies as much as I am, that I write about movies, that I continue to explore new movies and talk about movies. And it's really been one of those things where, and she was actually one of the people who really encouraged me to study music industry and sound recording. And she is, and so in a very real way, she's the reason why I do the podcast. She's the reason why I do the commentary. She's the reason that I do a bunch of the other things I've done, the movie chats that you're listening to now. And she's had some health issues the past few years. Namely, she was diagnosed with dementia back in 2019. I first started to notice in summer of 2018 that her memory was not quite what it was, and that had me concerned. And basically what happened was that recently she's had some pretty big issues come up with her health, and She's been to the hospital multiple times in the past 6 months for those. Really, the only time she's gone out of the house. And she used to have me take her everywhere, really, to the store, to physical therapy, since she stopped driving in early 2019. Well, after this latest scare, which if you follow me on Facebook, if you're a close friend or a family member, you know what happened. I won't go into the details here, but suffice to say, it was scary enough to where her living in her house was no longer feasible. So this past week, we actually moved her into assisted living, and that's been a big transition. It's still a big transition. She's the reason actually that this stream tonight was a bit later than I expected, because of the fact that I went to go visit her after I got off work today, and to take up stuff. Plus, I hadn't seen her in a few days. I wanted to see how she was doing, and she's doing all right. If you know her, she's doing all right. It's gonna be a bit of a transition for her, essentially, kind of having to relearn how to do some of the things that she very much knew how to do at home, and she's been a bit it's been a bit scary for her being in a new environment, but she's been really grateful for the for what my wife and her sisters and myself have done for her room to make her feel at home, to make her feel like has um, she has a part of her life still going. And so we actually were watching Netflix. We were watching 2 Weeks Notice, with Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock, and it's not necessarily a movie that she's always been, a fan of. I mean, she liked it when we saw it in 2002, but it wasn't one that really gravitated uh, towards. It's not something she really gravitated towards afterwards. She's actually been she has actually been favoring romantic comedies of late. Runaway Bride is one that she loves. She loves to watch. My Best Friend's Wedding is one we watched on Friday when I went over to see her assisted living. But then there are older ones that she really likes as well, like Houseboat and um, What's Up Doc, the Peter Bogdanovich film. And it's been interesting to see the types of films that she kind of gravitates towards in this time of she finds herself watching the same movies over and over. And Overboard is one that she actually has enjoyed over the years. Sleepless in Seattle is another one, and also Pillow Talk and Lover Come Back, some of the Doris Day, Rock Hudson ones, and it's one of those things where it's been interesting to see which movie she gravitates towards in the past few years. And it's one of those things where you you kind of wonder you kind of wonder how much of that is just repetition because of the fact that she doesn't necessarily remember that she just watched, and oh hey, this is on, I won't watch it again, or if it's something of comfort for her. And I mean, it could be a bit of both. I mean, I know that's one of the reasons I watch movies over and over, is because of the fact that they're comfortable to watch. And a few nights ago, actually, I watched Speed for the first time. It's not one that I genuinely. It's not one that I would consider one of my favorites, but it was something that I've been thinking about recently, and I wanted to watch it. So it was a good movie to watch in that moment. And it's been funny to watch her. I've because of the fact that I've been furloughed, I've been able to go a couple of times a week over to the house when she was living there, and we would watch movies that she gravitated towards, and movies that she wanted to watch. And I wrote about this back in February, sort of when I noticed these patterns. And it's funny that she hasn't really necessarily asked about recent movies. She hasn't really been interested in recent movies. I mean, the last movie she saw in theaters, the last movie we saw in theaters together was Toy Story 4. I mean, there are worse ways to go out, but, I feel like there's probably at least one or two other movies she might have liked to go see in theaters, but it just hasn't been and probably won't be. So, Toy Story 4 will probably be the last movie we've seen in theaters again, and I can't really argue with that. I think it's an excellent choice. And, but when I was writing about this back in February, I kept thinking about the Roger Ebert documentary Life Itself, where which is inspired by his memoir, which is based on his memoir, and it's a it's by Steve James, who directed Hoop Dreams, which Siskel and Ebert were rabid fans of when it first came out. And in it, we hear excerpts from Ebert's memoir, Life Itself. And one of the things that really stuck out is one of the quotes that really sticks out in that movie is, in the past 25 years, I've probably seen 10,000 movies and reviewed 6,000 of them. I've forgotten most of them, I hope, but I remember those worth remembering, and they're all on the same shelf in my mind. If for a while, a long time, that's kind of been a quote that I think about in terms of me, in terms of the movies I enjoy watching, in terms of the movies that mean the most to me. And so it's one of those things where, given what's been going on with Mom, I've thought about it within context of the movies she's watching and the movies that she's choosing to watch over and over. And it's interesting, some of the choices. Some of the choices are very predictable for her if you are familiar with her love of specific movies. Her favorite movie of all time is North by Northwest by Alfred Hitchcock. And it's a movie she would watch over and over and over. And it's just a wonderful movie. If you haven't seen North by Northwest, I can't recommend it enough. It's one of the great films of all time. It's one of the great thrillers of all time. Charade by Stanley Donen, which is a Hitchcock-type thriller not directed by Hitchcock. And it's another one that stars Cary Grant. It has Audrey Hepburn. And it's a wonderfully... It's really a wonderfully intricate little mystery. It's a romantic thriller, and it's well worth checking out if you haven't watched it. I believe it's available on Amazon Prime. If you want to check it out, it's got wonderful Henry Mancini score, which I actually just talked about on a podcast that I guested on a couple months ago with the Untitled Cinema Gals podcast. We talked about favorite soundtracks, and Charade was one of those that Chelsea, one of the co-hosts of that podcast, chose, and it was such a blast to talk about that score and Henry Mancini in general. And it's just wonderful to check out. The next ones that I think mean the most to her, the ones that have come to mean the most to her, are three movies by Mel Brooks. And in Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, which have always been two of her favorites of all time, and High Anxiety. And Young Frankenstein is a movie that I was introduced to at a very young age. I've had a deep affection for that movie for as long as I can remember. And it's one of those movies that I associate most with her. And the movies of hers, the movies that she's loved over the years in terms of Mel Brooks and comedy in general, it really helped sort of shape my comedic sensibilities in a way. The Mel Brooks films, Young Frankenstein, High Anxiety is a wonderful spoof of Hitchcock. It does help to have a knowledge of a lot of Hitchcock films, but it's a really entertaining one. And it's one that she's gravitated towards more often than not. Probably because she's been more familiar with Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein over the years. Another comedy that I have had an affection for as long as I can remember is Arsenic and Old Lace, which is from Frank Capra. It's again Cary Grant, and it's a very dark farce based on a Broadway play. It's a just a, it's a laugh a minute black comedy. It's in black and white. It's a great Halloween movie, and it's so entertaining to watch. Airplane was one that I listed in my blog about her movie watching, but it's not one that she's kind of more gravitated towards the Mel Brooks parodies, but she does have a real love of Airplane and especially Naked Gun. And it's interesting some of the other films that she's kind of gravitated towards. The Firm is one that she's really loved watching over the past few months with Tom Cruise. Mercury Rising, which is a movie that she always liked more than I did with Bruce Willis. It's an interesting thriller, and it's been interesting to see her. It's been interesting to see her resonate with that one. Another one is Rain Man, actually, and it's interesting with those two movies in particular because Mercury Rising involves an autistic boy who's being hunted by the government, and Rain Man, of course, is Dustin Hoffman as Down syndrome. And it's funny that those movies, her resonating towards those movies is kind of interesting because of the fact that I wonder whether that's something that she's subconsciously doing as a result of her memory condition. And it's interesting to see her gravitating towards certain movies like that. Sleepless in Seattle is one she's watched as far as romantic comedies. Return to Me, which she's always liked. It's a Bonnie Hunt directed romantic comedy with David Duchovny and Minnie Driver, was one that she really connected with in 2000. That was right around the time her father passed away. Air Force One is an action movie she's always loved with Harrison Ford as the president. I talked about Pillow Talk. The Birds is another one, and that one's interesting because of the fact that she's always had much more of an affinity, artistically speaking, to Psycho than she did The Birds. But The Birds is one that she's kind of gravitated towards the past few months, and it's been really interesting to see some of those shifts in the types of movies that she wants. And it's like she's always been a fan of 12 Monkeys, but she hasn't wanted anything to do with it recently. And that might be just because of the fact that there's a lot of psychological stuff going on in that movie too, as well as the fact that we're currently in a pandemic. But it's one of those things that The Long Kiss Goodnight is one she's really loved over the years. The Rennie Harlan action movie that was written by Shane Black and had Gina Davis as an assassin who can't remember who she is. And it's funny, the first time I brought that up recently, she was like, oh, I don't think I like that one anymore. And she's watched it a few times since then. And Air Force One is such a good movie. It's yeah, it's she has excellent taste with movies. She always has, and I'd like to think that I've inherited some of that. And one of the things I've also inherited from her that I know is my musical ability, and she has a very lovely voice, and we'll share some excerpts of that coming up during the during this stream, and this is kind of this is kind of a tribute to her. Like, if I'm being completely honest, this is kind of a tribute to her. I really so we did my mom and I did get my mom to do an interview for the Sonic Cinema podcast a few years ago, back in December of 2018. It was an interesting recording session, and I got a lot of great stuff out of her with it, but also there were times where she would where her thoughts would sort of meander and sort of go off on tangents that had nothing to do with what we were talking about. And I was really worried for a long time. I didn't listen to the interview for a long time because I'm like, how am I going to put this into a podcast? It's like, I don't know if I can do this. It actually turned out a lot better than I thought. And I do want to share some of that with you. I don't know when I'll post this. Maybe later this summer. I haven't quite decided yet. But this is part of an interview that I did with her for the Sonic Cinema podcast, and I hope you enjoy.
I think before we get into the movies, the first thing that I want to it's been mentioned a couple of times on the podcast in relation to at least one specific movie that you were an extra in, Scream 2. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, just before we start talking about movies in particular, what got you interested in acting?
I had done plays with a theater company in Ohio, and I had done some other theater company type stuff, and so I just was always a person who liked live theater and television. Of course, I was born into television. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, yes, television and movies, and my parents were
it's just audio for the interview,
and that's how I ended up going.
I thought I was going to be able to put it in the chat, but no, it's just audio.
A person who appreciated and loved all kinds of movies.
What were some of your first real memories as far as specific movies and just the type of movies that resonated with you when you were growing up?
Well, we saw everything. When we moved to Kentucky, obviously it was like 3,000 people were in the town. Mm-hmm. So we had one theater in the town, and we had a courtyard, a square, and all of that. And so movies were very well attended because there wasn't a lot to do.
Right.
Except for roller skating. Roller skating in Kentucky was the thing, and I loved it. And so that was the thing that section of my life made a huge difference. Mm-hmm. Because it was a small town, and it was hard. My mother actually, I didn't know this for a long time, my mother actually, when we moved out of Benton, Kentucky, my mother gave me a Valium because of the fact that I was so messed up. Because you knew everybody, and I was in the in crowd, I mean, it was just traumatic to come to Ohio. And so that was a thing that shaped my life for a long time.
Well, yeah, and I know like like with you as far as moving from Kentucky to Ohio. I know when we first moved down to Georgia, I wasn't that. It wasn't that bad for me, but it was that bad for me because of the fact that it's like it was the life that I knew.
Yeah.
And I mean I remember we went to movies often. And it's weird because I'm listening to this one podcast now, A's All Over, where they're going through the 80s 1 month at a time, and they're talking about all the basically every major movie that came out each month. And it's interesting to me, as much as I love movies, and I think I've always enjoyed movies, there's a lot that is my movie watching experiences. Like, I didn't have a lot of truly formative ones as a kid. I mean, there were some that I remember, to be sure. I mean, it's like I remember going to the drive-in every once in a while in Ravenna, and you told me about when we went to go see E.T. for the first time, and the first time that E.T. and Elliot fly, like, I had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, so we didn't even know that happened.
Yeah, so when it happens at the end, it's like, oh my word.
Yeah, because that wasn't at the drive-in. That was at the theater.
Yeah, that was in the theater.
Yes.
And then the first movie going experience I really vividly remember is opening day of Return of the Jedi, and I remember it because of the fact that the projectionists couldn't get it right. They couldn't get it on screen properly. And let's see if we can get Bendu out of here.
Yeah, you know you do.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's actually a pretty good area. That's actually a pretty good idea of sort of how the interview with Mom went. Unfortunately, it was right around the time that her memory was kind of slipping, but was good that she had some of those memories that she was able to snap back to. And there are some really good discussion points that go on in that interview, and I do plan on sharing that at some point this year. It was hard it was hard to figure out sort of what to cut out of some of it. I mean, some of it was pretty easy, especially if it was a tangent that sort of went away from where the interview went on. But like the thing about the Valium when they were moving up to Ohio, it's like I question whether that was something I wanted to leave in. But honestly, it's like if she's going to mention it, it's like I don't really have that much of a problem sharing it. And she's very much she's over the years she's kind of become more of an open book about herself, and as much as she can, at least. And one of the first things she mentioned in that interview, and one of the things I hinted at, was that she was in extra in Scream 2, which is true. She actually, I showed her the first movie because I love the 1996 movie, and actually was and it was like exciting because of the fact that they were filming Scream 2 at Agnes Scott College in Atlanta, and she reached out and was able to become an extra. So she is, if you remember Scream 2, during the cafeteria scene where Jerry O'Connell sings to Nev Campbell, in the very background, that is where Mom is. She's essentially supposed to be a cafeteria worker. It's kind of blurry back there, but she had wonderful things to say about Jerry O'Connell. She had wonderful things to say about Wes Craven, and it was just a great experience to be able to say that my mom was in that movie, and it was great to it was great to be able to have that experience with her, and that actually leads us into one of the things that I wanted to share, and I'm gonna try to continue to share it because of the fact that that's not it. So one of the things that I've sort of noticed, one of the things that my mom alluded to was she started out acting in a community theater troupe in Aurora, Ohio, which was, a bit north from where we were, but at the same time, it was something that she was passionate in, and she was in The Sound Music. She was in Oklahoma there. She was also in MAME, as well as other productions. And going through some of the stuff at her house, we've actually found programs from different seasons of its Aurora Community Theater. And so it's been great to be able to sort of see those memories. And when we moved down here, we didn't necessarily see there wasn't really a community theater troupe that she could do, but she got interested in acting in TV and movies. And so one of the things she did was extra work, and she also did some commercials. She did a couple of local commercials, but she also got some extra roles on Scream 2, which I mentioned, which was one of the last ones that she did. She also was an extra on Gordy the Pig, which was the other talking pig movie of 1995 other than Babe. And one of the great anecdotes she had about that one is because of the fact that it was so hot, like a lot of the extras were joking that they were going to eat the pig. And but some of the other some of the other extras roles she had were on TV. One of them was I'll Fly Away, that series with Sam Waterston, which I can't remember the name of that episode, but the biggest one that she had by far was and I posted about this yesterday on Instagram and Facebook, she was a featured extra in an episode of In the Heat of the Night, which guest starred Karen Black. And she was, quote unquote, the nosy neighbor. And she actually does play a pretty pivotal role. And I shared some pictures on Instagram about it. And I actually screenshot, I'll admit, I recorded this because of the fact that I wanted to show her this. And she was, when I went over there tonight, she was really thrilled to sort of see that I had found this. And I was grateful to see that she had this memory of her as the nosy neighbor of In the Heat of Night. And we'll try to show you that now. There she is as the nosy neighbor. So, yeah, that apron is pretty, that apron is something. Yeah, it was a big deal for, it was a big deal for us to see that and to be able to see her and her audience and her friends and family absolutely loved it. Well, it's funny because of the fact that she is so as a featured extra, she is a pivotal plot point because she actually provides an alibi to somebody who they think is accused of murder or is accused of killing somebody in the episode, and she actually did get another extra role, and she was supposed to have a line, and I can't remember what the line was, but unfortunately, that one got cut. Unfortunately, and it was a big disappointment that that happened. But that episode is of In the Heat of the Night is a dish best served cold. Actually, for any Star Trek fans watching this, which I know there are at least one or two, but and that episode is actually available in its entirety on IMDb TV, so feel free to check that out. And it's one of those things where she is a main reason. When I said that she's a main reason for my love of movies, a big part of it was her involvement in women in film and the film scene such as it was in Atlanta at the time. And, we actually, and as a result, we actually got to go to early screenings. And one of the things that, it's not really something to be proud of now, but we actually got to see Braveheart 2 weeks before it came out. And Mel Gibson was actually in town watching, doing press for the movie, and he was on 99X at some point, and that Friday, and she actually got to talk to him on 99X, and it was a big deal for her because she absolutely loved Mel Gibson at the time. It's really, it's a shame that how much of a freaking piece of trash he is, because I still respect him as a filmmaker. I still respect him as an actor, but you can't really respect him as an individual now. But she went to go see his movies all the time, and it's one of those things that seeing her evolution, seeing sort of the way she would watch movies. I got my desire to rewatch movies completely from her, and it's something that she really did inform a lot of who I am now in terms of my love of movies and my way of expressing myself about movies. And at the time, as I was starting to write about movies, we had this idea of doing sort of our own movie book, and sort of a review book akin to like Leonard Maltin's movie guide and some of the other ones that exist. And that's why I first started writing long form essays and reviews. It was preparing for that. I just went all in on it. We kind of gave up on the idea for a while, but the title that we chose was Why is the Rabbit Wearing Sunglasses? And the reason about that, I've explained this one before, is at the time they had an MPAA rating poster, and basically it was like they explained each rating, and each one would have like different caricatures of people who could go in, and one of them happened to be a rabbit. So one of the odd curiosities about this poster is that the rabbit was unable to go into an R-rated movie, which, makes sense, logically speaking. But he was under the NC-17 rating, which is nobody 17 years or younger. and he was wearing sunglasses. Hence, why is the rabbit wearing sunglasses? So the book I've actually the personal book that I've been writing, kind of a memoir, really, that's the title of the book. I'm keeping that title because of the fact that it means a lot to me that we chose that title, and it means a lot to me to keep that title as another sort of tribute to my mother and the way that she informed my movie love. And I mentioned earlier that she was a big. She has a very lovely voice. She was in the choir at church for a while, I believe, and it's one of those things where when I turned to composing, at one point I did want her to be on a piece that I wrote, and I've had other friends be on pieces of mine, and especially if it's a live instrument, and but with her, like I've always had a hard time with lyrics and doing that type of thing, but I still had the idea of putting her on a piece, and so one of the pieces I wrote for my 2004 or 2005-7 album, Sonic Visions of a New Old West, which is essentially my personal look at inspiration of the work of Ennio Morricone for Sergio Leone. One of the pieces that I did was called Danger on the Frontier, and I managed to I decided I wanted her to do some vocals, just some wordless vocals for that. And here's that piece. It's Danger on the Frontier from my 2007 album Sonic Visions of a New Old West. I actually forgot that I did vocals on that too. The bass the lower vocals were mine. I actually forgot about that on that, but you can hear in that piece it's very repetitive, but at the same time it's all about mood. It's all about atmosphere, and I thought that was a great way to get her on a piece. And I really am proud of what he did on Sonic Visions. It was New Old West. There's some really great musical ideas in there, and it's available to listen to. You can listen to it on YouTube. You can listen to it on iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon, CD Baby, bunch of places. And so we're kind of at the end of this chat. Thank you very much for everybody who's watched this. And I know it was a bit late. I'm not sure when the next one is going to... I'm not sure when the next movie chat is going to happen on basis of I just got back to work. But I hope you enjoy this one. And we're going to close with one of the things that my mom always liked was the idea of she's always been, you as you saw in the Eve of the Night, she's always been a bigger woman. And and this is one of those cases where she really kind of leaned into it. She liked the idea of, the old saying, it's not over till the fat lady sings. Well, she had the idea for a song that could be played at the end of sports games, essentially being the fat lady that sang. And this is actually an original composition of hers, and I decided that with this episode of the podcast, I was going to debut it online for the first time. And it is called It's Over. So she actually did two versions of this. She did one for stadiums, one for domes. Both of these are available on the my composer page on YouTube, and I will share these online at the end of this movie chat. Thank you very much, by the way, if you've stuck with me. And we will conclude with Victoria Scuttle singing It's Over. And thank you very much for joining me on the Sonic Cinema movie chat. Check us out at www.sonic-cinema.com, the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel, as well as every once in a while on twitch.tv/Scuttle Lemur. I hope you enjoy. This is Victoria Scuttle singing It's Over.
It's over, all over, so thanks all you fans. It's over, all over, now please leave the stands. The game was exciting, it was thrilling and fun. But it's over, all over, I hope your team won.
Thank you very much for listening. This is Brian Scuttle, and I hope you enjoyed this Sonic Cinema movie chat.